What are the things that are absolute requirements according to the FTC? And this is where it starts to get really overwhelming. So what I like to coach people on is when you think about your written information security plan, the first thing you want to do is evaluate your risks. So where's your data? Who has access to it? How often are you going through and doing some cleanup of the sharing that's happening, and all of that? So we'll start here on this slide with data protection. And so when we're talking about data protection, we're talking about a layer of security that you put in place through physical measures. Physical, and they could be technology, physical measures. And we talk about things like disk encryption, password protecting your different tools. Multi-factor authentication, I think, is on here as its own thing. It is, but that's another layer of data protection. And so you could also think of data protection from the days of old being a key to the filing cabinet. So the keys that we use for our digital filing cabinets now are going to be things like complex passwords and multi-factor authentication. And MFA is a huge one. Mandy, I know that one that is near and dear to your heart.
Yes, absolutely. Turn it on. That's what I can say. It is the most simplest yet most powerful tool we have in our security toolkit. If you've ever logged into an account and then had to enter the text message afterwards or go to your app, congratulations, you've already used it. But just beyond being another step, it's like a superhero layer of protection for our accounts. Believe me, I know it's a real pain sometimes, but hackers have all sorts of ways to guess or steal our passwords, whether it's through phishing, guessing, or going back to old data that they've breached. MFA adds that extra layer, requiring at least 2 different ways to prove that you're really you. Typically, this means something like something you know, your password, something you have, your text code or the authenticator app, or something that you are, like a fingerprint or a face scan. So even if a hacker does by chance get your password, they're going to hit a dead end whenever it comes to that second layer of defense.
This is where we come into access controls. So limiting access to the people that should have it and limiting just how much access they have within that environment. So when we talk about access controls, we're talking about not only who can get to the data shares and the applications, but how many layers within those data shares and applications they can get to. You think about QuickBooks Online, I think that's a perfect example. Really, any ERP, you've got different roles for different people. So someone that needs access to accounts payable may not need access to accounts receivable or payroll.
All right, let's talk about the incident response plan. And an incident response plan is essentially just a set of pre-planned steps that tell us exactly what to do when a security incident occurs. It's like having a break lesson in case of an emergency guide. Whether it's a data breach, ransomware, unauthorized access, the incident response plan spells out the who, what, and how we're going to manage the incident. This will keep you from scrambling around on what to do next. So why is it important? Imagine being caught in a fire without an escape. It turns into total chaos. By having the plan, you're able to ensure that you stay calm, efficient, and proactive when the incident hits. Let's break down the 5 stages of having an incident response plan. Preparation, detection and analysis, containment, eradication, recovery. And then actually there's 6. And then lessons learned. So let's start with preparation. This is all about training and being ready. Identify who the key players are on your incident response team, practice simulations with them, and make sure that they know their tools and their roles before anything ever happens. Detection and analysis. Here's where you detect and analyze any suspicious activity in your environment. Your goal here is to spot the incidents early and figure out what's going on. Early detection can really be crucial because it can limit the amount of damage. And then you're going to want to contain it. Now, once you know there's an issue, you need to contain it fast. This might mean isolating the affected system or limiting network access. Containment is all about preventing the incident from spreading across the rest of your systems. Then you're going to want to get to the eradication. After After containment, it's time to find where the root cause is. Once you do this, you're going to remove the malware, close any of the security gaps, and ensure there's no trace of the threat remains. Then we're going to be on the road to recovery. Now that you're on the back to the path of normal, you've restored the effective systems, you removed the malware, you want to monitor it closely, and then confirm that everything is secure and safe before you go back online. Then you're going to want to have a team huddle and review what happened and improve. This is one of the most important steps because it's going to help you strengthen your defenses and so it doesn't happen again.
So vendor management, we'll breeze through this one. You deal with a ton of third-party apps. Anything in accounting is highly collaborative, but we also have a lot of integrations because no one tool can do it all. So we've got things for expense management and timekeeping and, oh gosh, benefits management. So we have all these third parties that have access to personal information for us or our clients. And so it's perfectly acceptable and even becoming much more common these days to have vendor assessments done and just interviewing our vendors and saying, hey, like to know where our data lives that you hold for us and who has access to it, and do we do background checks, and are there any third-party contractors that have access to our information, and if so, what kind of security measures do you put in place? So it's okay to have those conversations.
Right, let's talk about security awareness training, my favorite topic. This is one of the best defenses we have in keeping our data and our systems safe. Because believe it or not, the human factor is often the biggest vulnerability in your firm. With security awareness training, you can turn that biggest potential weakness into your biggest potential strength. The strongest cybersecurity tools can't help if someone accidentally clicks on a phishing link or unknowingly gives away their sensitive information. By equipping your team with the tools and knowledge that they need to know through security awareness training, you are significantly reducing the risk across the board for your team.
And that brings us to encryption. And so encryption is something that can be done at the disk level. So when we think about encryption, we can talk about it in terms of a security system for your home. Without the key and the password, they're not going to be able to get past the security and get into your home. And so that's the same thing with disk encryption. You want to make sure if your device supports encryption, you've got encryption turned on. So that's another one of those really economically feasible things that you can do and should be doing. The systems monitoring and testing, this can be relatively simple or it can be incredibly robust. And I think what I want to do is just sort of level set about the WISP and its level of detail. So the FTC's made it really clear in their documentation that the WISP needs to document reasonable controls for reasonable risks. So the WISP, when we're looking at it, when we're writing it, we're looking at your actual threat vectors. So when you're considering it, you're considering your actual risks. And that's why this starts with a risk analysis. And small firm may have smaller risks than a large firm, or it could be upside down from that. It really depends on the firm. But you may not have a 25-page WISP at the end of this. You may have a 4-page WISP that says, hey, I've turned on multi-factor, I've got my encryption, I've got some access controls in place that we're looking at on a yearly basis to make sure they're good. We've turned on cybersecurity awareness training, and we go through that quarterly, and we've got regular simulations that are happening through a platform, and we've written our incident response plan. So that may be the extent of your WISP. You know, if you're a great big firm and you've got 20 or 30 employees, then it might be a little bit bigger than that. You might have some other areas that you're addressing, but just keep in mind that this doesn't have to be this massive exercise. This can be relatively simple if your firm's needs and risks are relatively simple. So don't get too overwhelmed by all the areas of inspection here.
Let's talk about backup and recovery. In our world these days, data is everything. It's our projects, our work, our client information, and it's all digital and it's all extremely vulnerable. Backup and recovery are like our security blankets, making sure we don't lose anything in the case an incident happens. But one key point to backup and recovery is testing it. Just like you test your fire alarm every time you set the clocks back or forward, you're going to want to make sure that you test your backups and recovery. So in the event that an incident does ever happen, that your backups are there and ready to go for you. The last requirement on the WISP is a breach notification. Hopefully none of us ever have to deal with this, but when your client's data is at risk, they have the right to know, and they deserve to know as soon as possible. So providing them a timely, honest, and thorough notification allows those affected to take steps to protect themselves, like updating their passwords, watching their accounts, or even freezing credit if it's necessary. It's all about empowering that client to protect themselves after a known incident has occurred. So what really goes into a good breach notification? You're going to want to make sure that they know what happened, what information was compromised, what you're doing about it, what they can do to protect themselves, and who they can contact for more information. Provide a clear, straightforward explanation of the breach, the type of incident that occurred, and when it was discovered. You're going to want to let them know that what was compromised. Transparency here is essential. If sensitive data was exposed, like names, addresses, social security number, or financial details, those affected need to know as soon as possible so they can take action to protect themselves. Then you're going to want to let them know what you're doing about it. This is where you detail the steps you're taking to contain the breach. You're investigating the root cause, you're improving your security. Showing the clients here that you're being proactive about the incident is going to help to rebuild the trust. And then you're going to want to let them know what they can do to protect themselves. Offer practical tips like changing their passwords or monitoring their credit. Or you might even provide resources such as free credit monitoring to help them stay protected. And then you're going to want to give them clear contact information of who they can call should they need any more details. Set up a dedicated hotline, an email, or a web page. When it comes to the breach notification, timing is critical. Most regulations require that these notifications go out as soon as possible so that clients can protect themselves. Fast, transparent communication helps those prevent the incident from spreading even further. I think we've covered them all. That was a lot, but I think you guys have a clear understanding of each of the steps that are required in the WISP.